Hello, welcome to the podcast. I am super happy to have you both on the podcast today. We're going to try something new. We haven't done this before, but I couldn't think of two nice or incredible people to try this with. So thank you so much for taking time, Johnny and Pedro. You're both amazing. This is two incredible creatives from Ogilvy, and you're both in different places in the world right now, right?
Yeah. I'm currently in Toronto, and Johnny, he's in Brazil. I used to be in Ogilvy, Brazil as well, but moved here a couple months ago to work at Ogilvy Toronto. So it's been a fun journey. And Johnny, he's still in Ogilvy, Brazil, right?
Yeah. So I'm a copywriter at Ogilvy, Brazil. Pedro and I, we actually were copywriter and art director, a duo, partners. And we worked together, I think, for 2 years, something like that. Yeah. He's an absolute, a joy to work with, a super great friend. We still keep in touch. But he's now at Ogilvy, Canada, and I'm still in Ogilvy, Brazil.
So, Pedro, it wasn't anything Johnny said to make you move to a different country, right?
No, I always loved working with Johnny. He's great, honestly. Awesome. Have great memories of all the projects we worked on together. Great copywriter, and thank you so much for having us, Chris. Honestly, we're so excited to be talking here.
We've been anticipating this recording for maybe, I don't know, a couple months. I don't know, maybe longer. So it's great to be here.
I'd say, but it's an honor to have you here, and also congrats on all of your many awards as well. I mean, I know you've both won not just Cannes Lions awards, but you've also won pretty much everything else there is to win. So congrats on being you. I don't know what they put in the water in Brazil, but there seems to be so many talented creatives over there. Congratulations.
Yes. Well, thank you for that compliment. I mean, and we're going to get into that later on, I think. But I mean, I feel personally very grateful for what's happening career-wise for us. And I think Pedro feels the same way. But we worked really hard on everything, and we always we just care about the work a lot. This is something we enjoy, and it's something that we talk about almost as if we talk about movies and TV shows. We actually love it, and we can talk for hours, and that's why we're talking with you today. And we hope that our passion will just seep into everyone's minds and hearts by listening to this. And we're just super happy to be here.
I'm sure it will. So, that's we're going to try a little bit of an experiment today. So the idea is that we all get to see these amazing case studies, but very rarely do you get to hear about the work behind the work. And so the idea we're going to go through today, and hopefully it works out well. If you're listening, let us know how we did. Is we're going to look at a case study that you've created, which is a piece of work that you've created, and the case study that goes with it. And then we're going to go through that work from the challenge, the insight, the idea, the mechanics, and then even how you put the case study together, because I think that's an art in itself. So if you're, we're going to play the case study now. If you are listening on Spotify or YouTube or most of them, you will be able to watch the video as well. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, shame. You'll get the audio, but to watch the case study, if you just Google for this or look for this on YouTube or look for this on Spotify, you can watch the case study as well. So here we go.
The temporal landmark is a law that limits the freedom of Brazil's indigenous people. It's an unfair decision that takes away lands they occupied before 1988. Despite their cry for help, no one is paying attention. And this isn't something we should just scroll on by, but a flag we can all help raise. Saved flags. Saving indigenous posts on Instagram to save their people in the Amazon. A movement that turned the save icon into indigenous body paint. By leveraging the algorithm's preference to make saved posts more visible, we gave more visibility to the indigenous cause, and the trend became like the Amazon, borderless.
So to encourage people to save indigenous content. This is going to be telling the outside.
Celebrities joined the conversation. Even Emmy winner Bitateu Ruewawau saved our posts. Several NGOs took part in the movement, and the streets went tribal, catching the media's attention.
Então nós precisamos da nossa terra para viver.
O direito dos povos indígenas é anterior à própria Constituição, à própria concepção de Estado.
But most importantly, we not only changed people's feet.
Indígenas, as terras por eles tradicionalmente ocupadas, traduzem sobretudo e principalmente direitos fundamentais.
We helped plant the natives' flag in their own lands. Saved flags. Save indigenous posts and help save their territory.
Whoa! It's an incredible case study, guys.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Cool.
So where should we start? Who wants to go first? Tell us about this piece of work. It's pretty brilliant. So congrats.
Thank you. I think Johnny, you can start with this one.
Sure. I mean, let's start with the challenge, right? So first off, just to give a little context, this was a completely proactive idea, like within Ogilvy, Brazil. So it's something that basically, for those who aren't in advertising, don't know the term, it just means that the creative team came up with it by themselves. It wasn't like given by a client for a specific job. And so the challenge was, like the case study said at the beginning, there is this temporal landmark, which is a really, let's say, unfair law in terms of the indigenous population in Brazil, because it basically invalidates the claim to the land that they have ownership over, like up until the Brazilian Constitution, so which is 1988 was when the Constitution was implemented. Yeah, so any lands like after that they have no claim over geographically, and so that was the challenge. This temporal landmark. And also the whole like discussion in Brazil in like around that issue as well was something that we found was a really a hot issue, like a hot button topic, we wanted to address.
So was this something that just would have been on the local news and when you're chatting to other people in the agency or just your friends, this is something that would have come up a conversation time and time again. Like, there's this problem. I wish there was a solution.
Yeah. And actually, Chris, even something interesting that you brought that up, because one of the reasons we even actually started with this campaign was because it wasn't getting actually enough coverage originally. So I'd say the bigger issue was not only that, well, first there was this law that had just been approved in the Chamber of Deputies in Brazil. So like it was like a step into coming into fruition, but it wasn't being really talked about. So it's like, okay, we have this really big issue, and how do we get people to talk about it? How do we get people to engage with it? And that's really when we started like looking into, okay, like what are ways we can go around the system or any hack in social media? Like how do we get this into the big mediums so they'll also be talking about it? So I think that's definitely where we started from.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, was there a particular person or a particular thing that drew you both to trying to come up with a solution for this particular problem?
Yeah, so I forgot to mention, we did this as a trio. So it was me as a copywriter, and then Pedro and Caio were the two art directors. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Caio was the one who initially brought the idea, like the spark of the idea. And then, it just flowed naturally between the three of us. And yes, it is a topic that, well, at least in the agency and in most of, people our age group we're talking about, it's a real, it's a serious issue. It's not super fun, like, in terms of like a discussion in a bar, say, with friends. But like Pedro said, we thought we could contribute with our creativity. And personally, I love ideas that hack something, because it's simple. It's and Brazil's known for this. Like, Brazilian advertising has always excelled when we use low budgets ideas that can hack something, and there's like a huge result, in term because of that. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of like the context for the challenge part of the idea. But there's a lot to say.
Yeah, and I guess also having, if you're doing these things as pro bono, having that limit on, you can't spend loads of money. You've got to find a hack solution. It kind of, what is it? Give me the freedom of a tight brief. Sort of, I guess you had your self-imposed tight brief. So bravo.
Exactly.
And what was the next steps? I guess you need to pass this by the agency and make sure it's something that they're kind of okay doing. So you come up with ideas and then, I guess, pitch it to your creative director or someone else, and then go from there.
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, I mean, it was first thing, again, we had this whole insight talking about this. So first we spent a while thinking about like how can we do something interesting. We eventually landed on the save button on Instagram because it's very, for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very ownable symbol. Like it's something that hasn't been used very often. It can be easily integrated into like the cultural aspect of the indigenous body paint. So they could use it as a body paint, almost make this icon as a symbol to their movement. And it's something everyone knows. It's something everyone can interact with. And then there's even the plus up that it's one of the things that gives the most visibility on Instagram. It gives more than a like, than a comment.
How did you find that out? Was that just random or?
Oh yeah, that was a very happy coincidence, I'd say. But it was really researching about metrics, and one day we're like, oh wait a second, like this metric it's actually like 2 times any other metric, so we can really make things more visible if people start liking, saving instead of liking. So it's almost like changing the behavior in a way of how people interact with their content. And yeah, I mean, we packaged this idea, we made it, look nice, and we also talked to some indigenous friends and people we know. I know a couple indigenous photographers in Brazil, so like I gave them a call. I'm like, hey, like, what do you think of this? And they like jumped on it immediately. They're like, hey, we'll do it. We really want to participate. And then it was just like basically talking to our CCO at the time, Sergio Mugnain. Again, great guy. He's like very crafty. He loves things that have craft in them. And when we were like, yo, we're going to paint this, he's like, yo, let's do it, So it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the case study looks really, really stunning. So
thank you.
Congrats. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into more of that.
Yes, and just to compliment Pedro, I think he mentioned it, but we've never seen an idea done for Instagram ideas themselves, but for the specific button, that's the save icon. It's like a dime a dozen, really rare. And so just to zone in on that specific part of the idea was something novel and original. And yeah, it was like fertile ground for, like I said, a creative idea. And yeah, we thought it was a nice territory to explore.
So how did you, I mean, so maybe you kind of already explained this a little bit. I was going to say, how did you go about like actually making this all happen and getting this all done? Like, was it I know you were saying you phoned up some photographers. It's great, like photography tick. Was it kind of lots of stuff like that? Just trying to pull in favors, speak to people that you know in different areas, and just putting it all together.
It was exactly that, actually. So we phoned some of these indigenous photographers we knew, and they already knew some other people that would be willing to be the ones in the photos as well. So, they talked to us. We were in a lot of calls. We were like in calls every day with different people. And it was very much a thing of, just everyone trying to help each other. And what was really cool is that, we did it. And even in the case study, you can see that we even have a part that's like several NGOs took part in the movement, is because originally we were going to start doing this whole project for one NGO that was in Brazil. But as the project started to move on, other NGOs started to message us and be like, hey, we want to be part of this. And we're like, yeah, awesome. Like, the more people participate, the better it is. So we just, did also like content for them.
Sell to the NGOs.
Yeah, it's just
because they want to take part. It's for a good cause. And like Pedro said, we were even on a call once with one of the indigenous photographers in the north of Brazil in the Amazon. And so obviously the internet connection wasn't very, very good at times. And I think his little cousin or his nephew came along and showed him like a toy at one point. So it was just, for me, it was such a surreal moment, because we're talking to a native, indigenous person in the Amazon, but he's right there in the moment, For me, it was like super strange in a good way. I never had that experience before, but it felt so real. Like, we wanted, above all for this case, we wanted authenticity. We wanted to be true to to their culture. We didn't want to be like just two white guys who are trying to use this for our own cause. No, like, we genuinely went after the people who represent the culture best, and we did it as faithfully as possible, within the realms that we had, the limitations we had.
I mean, it looks like the results look amazing. Was it all plain sailing, or were there sort of bumps along the road where you're like, okay?
No.
How did you kick it off? Like, I often find you have these great ideas, and then even if you have some great people behind it who are helping you out, like, it's so hard to get traction and get that coverage, particularly now where I think with mass media, they're all kind of like, you basically have to pay them or have something that's really newsworthy and different to get written about. So how did you kind of overcome those challenges and make this sort of go so viral and mainstream?
Well, I think one of them was a lot of indigenous influencers. They definitely made a big difference, and they had contacts as well. So they sort of used their contacts to really help us. I also had a friend of mine who helped do a couple PR releases outside of Brazil, because
nice.
Usually you can see in the case study, we were able to get a couple of vehicles to write about it from outside Brazil, which was really good, because we also wanted people from other countries to again be talking about it. And we also got international indigenous NGO that is called Indigenous Peoples Movement, and they also helped definitely take it to another level of people talking about it. And the good thing is that in Brazil there's already a very strong indigenous activism, and they also really picked it up, and they used this as a way to push against the temporal mark, which was great, because then this was able to be like a step into their cause and help them out, which is what we really wanted. So we were super happy that it was it was a success in this way, for sure.
With the timing, did you find that you had to sort of push things around a particular date, as though, if you're particularly, I know from past experience, when you were working with influencers or working with multiple charities or organizations, if you want something to be picked up and get some traction, it helps to kind of build it around a time or a moment or a day, so that there's a lot of activity happening at once, so the sort of can push through the filter. Did you find you had to do any of that, or was it easier?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was. Speaking of like bumps in the road, it was more just like a grassroots effort on our part.
Right.
We didn't have too much like in terms of planning, like in a planning department in that sense. So like we didn't have a schedule. We just wanted to make this happen, put it out in the world.
Properly creative led then.
Yeah.
No plans.
Yeah, I mean, it was very creative led, and thankfully we had the blessing of like, our creative director and the CCO as well. But because the idea came from the creative department, there wasn't like, a meeting for insights or, a planning session, anything like that. In that sense, it was good because we had more control over the idea. In another sense, maybe we would have benefited more if we had like strong pillars that supported the insights. But it is what it is. We worked with what we had, and everything's like a learning process for us.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in general, do you have a process that you prefer that, like, and you've both had lots of experience working across lots of different clients and lots of different agencies, I think, as well. Is there a rough route that you found that works to get better ideas out than, like, so sort of, is there a process that you find tends to work or tends to create better ideas that go further? Like, or you could ask the opposite of that. Are there things that really easily kill creative ideas?
Is it okay if I start?
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. You can start. I can see your brains already.
For an episode on itself, by itself. But let me think. I think this may be a bit controversial, but I think, like this, for example, this idea, and even Magic Audios, it didn't come from, having meetings, like having a brief, basically. It came from just us having fun. And fun, I know this is a serious idea, like Safe Flags is a serious idea, but we had fun in the sense that we had creative freedom to play around, We didn't have limitations from anyone saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So for me personally, I think that the best ideas come when you're like in a relaxed state of mind, when there's not too much pressure. There has to be a little bit of pressure, obviously. But I think it's super important for the creatives to have freedom and to just play around. And also for me personally, I always believe, like Muhammad Ali said, that half of the fight is like when he's training, And so I take it to heart that I study your podcast, Chris. Like I study other advertising podcasts and video case studies, and just immerse myself in the world of advertising. And obviously I watch a lot of movies and anime and video games and all the nerdy good stuff of pop culture. And I truly believe, like, the more you do that, it's one of the few professions that you can do that and you have a career benefit in terms of results, output. The more you absorb, and, obviously you need a little criteria, what you put into your mind. But I think it's fair game that the more you have, like, the better the ideas are going to come.
Totally agree. Yeah, you want that kind of wide breadth of different experiences, so that when you're trying to come up with a creative idea, I guess you can bring to bear things that maybe are slightly left field from just, that maybe you'd get to a different place than if you were just looking at just advertising. Like, if that makes sense. If your
Exactly.
your inputs and you sound like someone he's always naturally interested in the world around them and lots of different things. Like, oh, I don't know about that. Let me learn about it. Like,
yeah, Pedro is as well. He's like up
bravo.
there.
Yeah, bravo to you both.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Oh,
But
thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, I agree with Johnny as well. References, I mean, absorb as many as possible from everywhere. Like, especially like for me being an art director, to me, it's like I try to see everything with an art directional eye, because I feel like everything is design. Like, design is everywhere. Like a way a room is set up is design. So I think it's just like always looking and trying to find why things are where they are. And I feel like that helps the brain. And I think simplicity too. I mean, the best ideas are simple ideas. I feel like, especially if you look at Canon, almost every year, you have so many simple ideas that are so smart. It's all about it. I think more than like thinking it, it's like who saw it first in a way. It's like the first person to point it out. Oh, have you ever noticed that? This, and then everyone goes, oh my god, you're right, that is so I feel like that really, you know, I try to really, again, when I'm thinking of ideas with other people, and I know Johnny as well, when we were always trying to have ideas, like, okay, so how can we make this as simple as possible? Like, can I explain it in one sentence? And sort of those challenges to ourselves in terms to like almost test the idea to see like how strong it is and how it works. So I think that's the process that has been working, at least for me, in the past couple of years.
Just to add to that, one of the factors for this idea that really made it come to life was basically, persistence. We had, I don't know how many, Pedro knows this better than I probably, but we had tons of versions of the video case study, maybe over 30. I'm not sure anymore.
Wow.
It was so much that I don't remember, but we, it's about identifying it, like seeing something that others haven't seen, but also like how much are you gonna, defend the idea? People are gonna say it's not good. Like, I don't know, it's been done before. It's too similar to this or that. But if you truly believe it, like it happened with this idea specifically, then you can make it happen. So a lot of most of it is basically just persisting, not giving up. Like any job, really, it's not something that's only in advertising, but I think especially in advertising, because ideas are so fragile. I almost compare it to like running an egg race with an egg on your spoon, and you can't like drop it on the ground. Any like little wind that comes along or someone bumps into you, it's gonna fall and break. And so you really have to first care about it a lot, like have passion, and just don't give up. Like Churchill said, like never, 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 never give up. I think it's the same with advertising.
As good advice. And I always think it's sort of the hardest job in an agency in a way is being a creative, in that so many of your ideas that you put so much passion into get destroyed often for no particular reason
on a daily basis.
And so you've got to have very thick skin. But I agree. It's sort of, if I think back to great campaigns I've been privileged enough to work on over the years, you're absolutely right. There was always a few people who would just like never give up, like consistently going, no, we're going to get this done, we're going to make this happen. For sure. So that's great advice. And we mentioned a little bit about the case study there, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about it, because it's, case studies can make or break whether something gets awarded or not. You've got 2 minutes, which isn't a lot of time,
right,
to tell a story. You chaps seem to be particularly good at it. I've looked at your sort of portfolios and looked through a few of the case studies. They're all pretty amazing. What are it'd be great to get your advice and your tips on what makes a great case study. Is there a formula that you've found tends to work? How do you...
Pedro, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start this one. So I feel like it's interesting because the more you look at case studies, the more you start to identify the tropes, sort of. So there's always like the famous presenting this trope, or the in X country this happens trope. So you can sort of identify. But I think there's an interesting formula that that I think is a good starting point, usually when we're going to do a case study, and is something you can probably observe, which is basically the fact, the but, and the so, which is essentially like, okay, this is the fact, this is what happens, but we noticed X and Y, so we did this. So it's usually, I'd say it's a good like place to start, but then it's cool to try to break a little bit away from that, so it doesn't also feel so it doesn't feel monotonous and like just again like, oh my god, like I've seen the same structure 1,000 times. But I always think it's good to start there, because I also know like you might try to start building a case study and just go like, oh, we're going to do something crazy, and then it doesn't make sense, and then it's like, oh wait, like the first thing is people got to understand what I'm saying. Like I got to make sure the facts are in there, I got to make sure all the information is clear, and then once you get that, you can start tinkering with what can come before, what can come afterwards. And I think like something very important is like the sooner you get to the idea, the better as well, because I mean, people are, you think about it, I always think about this, probably someone in a jury is going to be looking at 1,000 of these in a couple days. So like if it starts boring and they'll probably skip it. So you got to try to, grab their attention as soon as possible, be concise, be crisp and clear. And I think that's always what me and Johnny have tried to do, like in our case studies, is always like, how do we iron this down to the most clear version possible, always starting with like a very basic structure, and then we can try to play around with it.
It's interesting as well, because I think if you look at juries generally, if you look at sort of Effies or Lions or any of those kind of big international award shows, that the juries are becoming more and more international, which is, I think, a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I guess in a case study, I think it's nice. Like I think gradually over the years, we've seen more local case studies winning big international awards, and that I think in the past they've probably been a bit biased towards like US, Europe, UK kind of things.
Uh-huh.
It's nice to see more awarded work from countries. I mean, I spent a lot of my career in South Africa. I think Brazil's kind of, Brazil and South Africa often punch above their weight when it comes to international awards shows. I mean, Brazil like knocks it out of the park, but you often have a really tricky job of putting across something that's probably very local. Like I hadn't heard of a lot of the terms that were in this case study, but you've got to explain it to someone who has no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, is there an art to that, or do you just have to really think hard about it and put it in there and just try and think like, what's the actual mission critical stuff? I don't know, how do you do it?
Yeah, you want to get the facts in there. That's the most important thing. Like, what exactly are you trying to communicate? What is the case? What is the idea, And especially with, like, in our case, we had the Brazilian context. We had to explain it a little bit at the beginning. So one thing that helps, I find, as a copywriter even, is just to have, a real eye for revision, like editing, basically. And it's something that David Ogilvy himself said. We have a little book that we get when we enter Ogilvy Brazil. I don't know if other Ogilvys have this, but it's like a super small pocket-sized book with quotes by David Ogilvy. And one of the quotes is, he's not a good copywriter. Well, he's saying like, I'm not a good copywriter. I just edit a lot. And I think that's true. Like, no one is really a master, like god of writing or ideas. But the more you chisel away, eventually you're going to find that diamond that, shines out. And like Pedro said, it has to be simple. It has to be super easy to understand. And there's a lot of tricks, I guess, you could use for that. Like, don't use flowery language. Long words are never welcome because people are just going to, get over their heads with it. So, and also one thing that's super important that we talk about a lot, him and I, is that we know the job. Like, we are immersed in the job, but the jury and the people in the world, they're going to see this for probably just once and super fast. They have no idea. Like, they don't want to stop their day to see this. Most of them don't anyway. And so, you just want to make it crystal clear, make it easy to understand, digestible. And I mean, I could go on for days about this, but it's just simplicity is key. Like, keep it simple. Stupid is an acronym that we had in my university, and it stands for KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean, it's just the basics of the basics. If you keep that in mind, it'll be you're going to be 50% done.
I'd imagine. Do you share it also with some people who have no idea about the case study and just ask what they think? Like, share it to a friend who's not in advertising, and so, like, does this make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you always got to do the proof of showing it around to people. You just send them and be like, "Do you get it?" That's all. And depending on the answer, you got to be okay. Maybe we need to tweak some things here, or maybe it's going somewhere. So yeah, for sure. And I think something interesting also with the international juries, Chris, is also, for example, even the language being used in English now needs to be sort of rethought, because you have a lot of people who aren't, sometimes, like, it's not their first language. Like for me and Johnny, English isn't our first language. There's a lot of words and terminologies that wouldn't make sense for us. So it's really interesting too that, like, even people that like, for example, here in Canada or in the US and stuff, in England, who usually made case studies in English just thinking like, oh, another English speaker is going to grab this, needs to think, oh wait, now someone who's international might get this, and the language, they need to understand what I'm talking about. So yeah. I think it's really changed things. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. There's a good backup of you saying don't use long, complicated words. And I thought interesting as well, the use of subtitles I always find very helpful. I saw you used subtitles in this as well.
Subtitles, I mean, nowadays I always put them in the case study because, we have viewership from all over the world. And for my portfolio, I just want it to be, very easy to understand. And I also have people who have certain needs that they need to read it, or they have the sound off, they can't listen to it. So just having the words there helps a lot.
That's great. And we talked a lot about juries and stuff. I know you said you'd like to talk a little bit about lines and maybe some of the things you saw this year. Any big standout things?
Sure.
I think one thing to me that really stood out in Cannes this year was definitely the simplicity. But I mean, obviously, we always talk about simplicity. Winning ideas are always simple. But I think this year, like, it was like really, really simple. It's like you look at it, you get it, super easy to understand. And some of the ideas that definitely stuck out to me was Recycle Me, the Coca-Cola one that won the Grand Prix for print, as well as the also the Grand Prix in outdoor, which was the Magnum idea, the Find Your Summer. So again, like, to me, it's just like one of those things. Recycle Me, again, it's just a crushed logo of Coca-Cola. You understand, like, okay, it's like a crushed can, Recycle Me, it's recycle. Like, it's so easy to understand, and you see it, you get it. It's beautiful. It's cool. It's really well executed graphically. Same thing for the Magnum, the Find Your Summer. Like, just that little light comes in and shows that moment that, it's a colder weather, but the person's enjoying their ice cream. So it's like you can find those spots. and it's so beautiful too. Like the photography is beautiful, and I mean, I love craft. Like I'm very, very, I think a craft-oriented art director. So to me, when I see these like beautifully executed prints, I spend like hours looking at them, being like, dude, this is so cool. This is great advertising. And I think there was a lot of that this year. I mean, honestly, like all these very simple ideas, those two definitely stuck out to me a lot. Yeah, I think Johnny also has some of his faves, but I think those two are the ones that I'd say for me.
Yeah, I share 100% what Pedro said, especially with Recycle Me. And one point that we should mention about that idea is because Coca-Cola has done tons of ideas, right? They've done everything. It's almost impossible for you to come up with a truly original Coca-Cola idea, let alone an idea that's super bold like this one. Because, I mean, I've worked for Coke since I began in my career. I've done a bunch of, work for Coke. And one thing that stands out is that it's a client that has a lot of tradition, and it's very hard to do something that challenges the status quo for that client, right? So, for example, they always say, like, don't mess with the logo, or you can't do this, you can't change that. There are tons of rules. So for them to do that idea, where they're literally changing their logo, like, crunching it up in terms of like looking like a recycled can, that's a very bold idea client-wise. And the dream for every creative is that the clients will be so bold as Coca-Cola. If every client were like Burger King or Coke or Dove even, I think it would benefit the whole industry, to be honest. And we know some clients can't do that, obviously, because, they're starting out or they don't have enough money or for any number of reasons. But that was one point from that idea that stood out to me, like the boldness of the client accepting that. Oh yeah, and so another idea that came out in Cannes this year, I think it's my favorite idea of all time, is British Airways, the outdoor campaign that won a Grand Prix by Uncommon London Creative Studio. And I could go on and on about that case. I mean, it's so beautiful. I've seen it maybe 8, 9 times, 10 times. I even showed it to my colleagues at Ogilvy Brazil during one of our meetings every Friday. And what I love about it is that there's no voiceover. It's just the music and the copy, obviously, the outdoors. But the simplicity of it, it's such a minimalist idea. For those who don't know, maybe I should give a little context. It's an outdoor campaign that emphasizes what British people truly want from their vacations. I think that's one way to put it. So if you can imagine,
is it just British people, or is it not universal?
I think it is universal, but in that case, it was more like showing the British mindset, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so for the listeners here and the viewers, if you can imagine like a billboard, and there's one of those check forms, like there's a blank bullet point, and it says business, and then another one, pleasure. But then there's a third one where there's a creative twist, which is a really cool and witty and creative headline. So, for example, because the third one would say like, because she still loves me, or because I'm in remission, or I don't know, because it's 4 p.m. and it's already dark. So for a copywriter, that's like pure gold. And again, like they had the boldness to do something that doesn't play down to people's intelligence. Like, we know you can understand this, like talking to the audience, right? And it even directly talked to them because it showed, during the case study, it shows people walking under the billboards, the digital billboards, and the copy changes to reflect what the person's doing. So like if it's a rainy day, it will be a headline that reflects that. Anyway, I recommend everyone to watch that case, rewatch it even, because I think it's one of the best ones out there from this, not only this year, but maybe this decade, from Cannes. And sorry, I went on too long talking about this.
we can show the case study quickly, but yeah, it's
right.
It's brilliant. I agree.
So
it's a fantastic piece of work. And there's a new, if you're watching, we can pop it up. There's a couple of new campaigns they just launched now for business class as well. That's I don't know whether you've seen those. They're quite nice.
I haven't actually.
Oh, it's really nice. I've seen them.
Yeah, they're
So
good.
good.
I'll pop them up on the slideshow. But yeah, they're I mean, a fantastic agency and brilliant piece of work for British Airways. Totally agree.
Well deserved for them. Yeah.
Right. 100%.
We obviously we just talked about some of the Cannes line work, and I know that you wanted to share some other bits of your own work, some other amazing case studies, and I believe the next one is from Coke, and you actually won Lions for this one as well, if I remember rightly. Do you want to set us up for it, and then let's watch the case study.
This was a campaign for Coca-Cola, Brazil, and it was for Christmas a couple years ago. So, again, this was an idea that, if I'm not mistaken, once again, it came from the creative department. It was just our creative director and his ACD, when they noticed that sometimes the audio waves from an audio WhatsApp message, they kind of resemble a bottle. And yeah, the idea just naturally came from there. From there, it was super easy to understand. The client loved it, and everyone got behind it for Christmas. And because we work for digital commerce, our goal is always to increase sales in digital delivery channels. So, for example, iFood is an app here in Brazil where you can order food and drinks. Just like Uber Eats, you have Uber Eats in the US and UK, I believe. And our goal is always to increase sales. And so that was the objective for this campaign. And I think we can show the case, and it speaks for itself.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
People love sending WhatsApp audios during Christmas. Especially in Brazil, a continental country and WhatsApp's second largest market in the world. So, when we challenged them to draw the iconic Coca-Cola bottle using WhatsApp audios, everyone went nuts.
Coca-Cola Magic Audios.
The first chatbot-based WhatsApp experience that turned people's bottle-shaped audios into magical gifts. Analyzing each audio in only a few seconds required loads of intelligence, the artificial kind. That's why we trained Coca-Cola's chatbot with thousands of audios, teaching it to analyze waveforms, shapes, sounds, and even accents. The more audios sent, the more the AI learned. We even taught it to disqualify words related to other brands and to identify mispronunciations. Magic! The people who were able to draw the bottle won amazing gifts to share with their loved ones. Sounds simple, right?
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Not so much. Over 12 million seconds of audios were sent trying to draw the bottle. 2 weeks of promotion got us more than 4 million messages sent. 100,000 new users registered in the Coca-Cola WhatsApp base. 400,000 Christmas audios sent. Now, people will never stop seeing drawings in WhatsApp audios.
Bravo. That's fantastic. I love what I love about it as well is whenever I see a little audio note now, I'm always going to think of Coca-Cola. So it's a good long-term memory in there as well.
Yeah, I should mention that we won 2 bronze lions, so one in mobile and one in brand experience and activation. And we won 2 shortlist awards as well, so one in digital craft and the other in radio, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, radio audio.
Yeah, so once again, I'm so grateful for that. I almost couldn't believe when it happened. It was my first, Cannes Lion for Pedro as well. And on top of the Cannes Lion Awards, we also won like London International Awards, one show, Brazil's Creative Club Award. Yeah, it was just I think the best part for me was just telling my family the news, and just also winning it with an idea that's super fun. I think we're talking a lot about funvertising instead of sadvertising nowadays, because we see a lot of cases that are just a downer or gloomy and with hard topics, which they should do, but it's always refreshing and I think the jury this year noticed this, when there's ideas that are based on fun and something you want to share, something that's funny. I think humor is coming back, which is a welcome sight after the COVID pandemic. But yeah, in a nutshell, that was Magic Audios for Coke.
I guess it's also so nice when you share it with your family and you're like, it's a massive brand that everybody knows, and you've probably even seen this like somewhere. That
does help a lot.
Yeah. Oh, and we were just so happy, and it's a super simple idea too. Again, talking about simplicity, like it's a WhatsApp audio in the shape of a bottle. Like, can't get simpler than that. So, we were just so happy when we won, and I mean, it was a really fun project to be a part of and work on, and see the idea finally happen. I remember the day we had this call, and it's like, oh, it's live, guys, and I was like, okay, awesome. So it was really cool.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. I'd love to give it a go. It was so good that you moved to Canada. And you mentioned in the case study there that you had to you actually had to train up like a little AI machine to be able to identify the different sound waves. Obviously, AI is a hot topic in our industry for obvious reasons. I guess it's kind of another amazing tool with which to try and make even better work with. How are you guys approaching using that? Have you got any thoughts on that? Any tips, recommendations for other people, and how to I don't know, what should they do with it? How can they take advantage of it? Anything that you've learned so far?
So I think that AI has definitely changed the industry, like especially how a lot of the way, for example, even building presentations, everyone uses a lot of AI generated images, or just for other things. I mean, there's just going to be so much still changing with AI now. And I mean, now video is coming in soon, because until now we had already good images and statics, but video is coming in really strong now with the new Sora. I think that in terms of ideas, though, the AI should always be complementary to make the idea happen. I do believe that there was this wave of things done with AI ideas. So it's like, oh, glass done with AI, cars done with AI, this done with AI. So I think that sort of phase has passed, and now it's more of a thing like, how can AI help an idea sort of happen? So I think in the situation of Magic Audios, the AI was more of something that allows the idea to happen, but the idea isn't like an AI. The idea is draw the famous bottle. So the AI, it just becomes something that helps, again, speed up the process of analyzing the bottle. Instead of being a person who has to do it, you have an AI do it. You can make it something, massive, and just have, again, thousands of people recording and sending audios. And I think that's what made it fun too. So it was very gamified. All of us tried drawing, and it was really cool. And so I think that's how I see it. It's really the use of AI for ideas. It's really about like how they add on to something that isn't necessarily focused around AI. And for day-to-day use, I think, again, art directors, should be learning how to use all the Midjourneys of the world and just using it for your presentations and everything.
What if, particularly for art direction, is there anything that you've learned that you were like, oh God, now I know how to do that. That's way easier. Like, is there a particular way that you do your prompts, or is there a particular, like, I know we were experimenting with it, we're always experimenting with it, but one thing we found is asking for revisions seems to often be a less fruitful task than just totally redoing the prompt and starting again.
Oh yeah, I totally agree.
But yeah, I mean, what are some of the key things you found when you're trying to get good visuals out of it that work or don't work?
Well, I mean, I feel like even online you can find a lot of like the almost pre-start of prompts. What I feel in general about prompts is that you'll be able to get very like maximalist ideas or like scenario styles, but you won't really be able to get very specific stuff out of it. So I think that's a big thing. It's like knowing how much you'll actually be able to get out of it. But I'd say just like the usual commands. I also feel like certain image AIs do certain things better as well. So for example, I think a Midjourney is always better for like hyper realistic stuff, but I still like using a DALL-E for something that's a little more graphic, that isn't as hyper realistic as Midjourney. And also I think versions also influence, because in Midjourney there's like so many different versions. I feel like older versions were more artsy, like you could get artsier stuff out of them. I feel like the new ones are kind of losing that a little bit, which is good because you get hyperrealism, but at the same time, you lose some of that artsy edge that you could get before. So
you mentioned there's very casually, you were like, yeah, there's loads of websites where you can get like nice prompts from to start you off. Like, is there any that you use, or like, or is that like, do you just, I don't know, how do you find those websites? Do you just Google it?
I just Google it. I'll be honest with you. It's I think there's these pre-prompts that you use. I just kind of got a couple of them off Google and used them. But I feel like the newer versions of Midjourney, you're starting to need less of those. Like I remember, especially in V1 and V2, you needed to put this crazy thing, which was like a hyperrealism applied to this and that with the something ratio. Like I feel like you don't need that in the newer versions of Midjourney. So
I agree. Yeah. Well, I think that generally tends to happen with technology, right? It's like you have to be really precise at first, and then it gets better as you go along. Because I mean, if you look at the usage of AI right now, it's less than 1% of people who have tried it end up continually using it on a regular basis, which is a very low percentage, and that's unlikely to change if you need to be very specific about your prompts all the time. I mean, there will always probably be some art to it, in that, like, there's an art to using Google. Like, some people are really bad at using Google. I watch some friends sometimes searching for things, and I'm like, how are you expecting to get the right result from that prompt? But and I'm sure that will always be the same with AI. But I would imagine if it wants to get really good, then yeah, you're totally right. You shouldn't need to do such detailed prompts.
Yeah, but and I feel like the newer versions we're starting to get to a place where you can be more objective with your prompts, which is great. I mean, honestly, again, you can access DALL-E as well through Bing. So you can also just Google like Bing images, and you can use DALL-E there. And I think it's been pretty easy to use. It's not as hyper realistic as Midjourney, but I use it sometimes because I think it captures really well what you say, and you don't need such a long prompt too. So I think that's something.
Johnny, I promise you I am going to get to you in a second, but I just want to quickly
Of course.
Finish off with Pedro. I guess at the moment the way that you're using these is often for mock-ups and just giving people an idea of something, because I imagine there's all sorts of like probably red flags around copyright material and like can you use it for real work and not. What are you finding so far? What kind of things are you using it for in day to day?
I'd say probably mostly, like you said, mock-ups for presentation visuals, reference images. It's a lot more of that. Like, I think, again, there is a big discussion around how these things are going to be copyrighted and all that, but that's a whole other can of worms that is still going to be, figured out in the near future. But I think that for work, I feel like a lot of people still want to use still want to photo things, still want to like actually produce it, because want it or not, you do have more control when you produce it. Like you can go really well with AI, but there's a certain level of sometimes like specifically something you need that we're not there yet. Maybe someday we'll get there with AI because the speed it's evolving is insane. But as of now, I feel like it's mostly just mock-ups, references. But we'll find out. It's a crazy future. So, go ahead.
Yeah, 'cause I guess the other thing with the visual side of it is, and I don't know whether you use this yourself much, but even in tools like Photoshop or other things, maybe you're using it for making quicker edits to existing imagery or existing, and therefore you're not having to worry about the copywriting thing. It's just that AI is allowing you to do something that would previously take you hours.
100%.
5 seconds.
100%. Totally. Yeah.
Because I think when you think about AI, you do immediately maybe go directly to like DALL-E or whatever, but actually there's a whole load of AI tools built into a lot of the day-to-day tools that we use.
The generative fill in Photoshop, it's a blessing. Thank God they added that in. Like, you save up so much time. Old school way, you have to manually edit the image, to take away parts, use other parts of the image, you layer them out. Like, it's now you don't need to do all that. You circle it, be like, remove this can, and it removes it. So I feel like that's a really good use of AI. Like, every art director is definitely loves the generative fill and those little things. I feel like the more they improve that, the better it's going to be. And I'm excited to see what the next things, how these things are going to evolve, man, because it's been helping a lot, and I feel like it can be even cooler in the future.
Totally agree. And anyway, so Johnny, we've had the visual side of things. I'm guessing you've been more preoccupied with the written side of things, but I know you're naturally curious, so you've investigated everything, I'm sure.
Well, I try. I think for the art directors, it's definitely helped a lot. And in my case, I use mostly ChatGPT. I'm one of those copywriters who hasn't really used that much, but like, I'll give an example. One time, and I can't go into too much detail because it's like a confidential job for an agency, but
right.
I can say it's for Coca-Cola. And I basically had to come up with names for an idea for the campaign. And so I gave the prompt, and I got a bunch of results, maybe 30 or 40. Most of them, I think, were just rubbish, unusable names. But some of them, even the ones that I couldn't use, they had a direction that was interesting. And I was like, oh, this could be something, It wasn't the final name. But what I'm trying to say basically is that it's a tool, it's something that you should have in your toolbox to give you a direction, in this case, generating names. But for headlines or body copy, it helps a lot with translation, because at Ogilvy we do a lot of Spanish and Portuguese and English back and forth translations. So I used it for that because it's very accurate in that sense. But for ideas themselves, I think for now we're good in terms of like the human capacity for, for example, coming up with safe flags or magic audios, even if it's got a little bit of AI. The idea itself in magic audios was super insight driven and human driven. Like I said, it was two creative directors going back and forth and saying, "Oh, this looks like a Coca-Cola can." And I'm also one of those that they don't really believe in like doomsayers, like, "Oh, the world's gonna end," or I do think a lot of professions, I mean, obviously it will happen, will be gone in the near future, but like Anselmo Ramos said, the CCO of GUT, the agency, copywriters should be safe. They shouldn't worry. Only the bad copywriters should worry. So nothing really changes. I think you still have to be at the top of your game. You still have to be curious. Above all, be passionate about what you do. Care about what you do. Those are the pillars for any profession, let alone advertising. Because I see a lot of people who come into this business, especially people who are creative naturally, oh, I like movies and stuff. But I always think, like, do you actually love advertising? Like, do you really like it? You have to like it because most of us will be this for the long haul. I mean, I hope to be. And so it takes, a certain kind of maybe obsession for some of us in a good sense. And yeah, just endless curiosity. I know, Chris, you believe in with 42 courses. And going back to AI, yeah, it's just another tool in the toolbox. And I welcome it. I think it's awesome. But I still think that we should depend more on the human brain, which is a very powerful tool in itself.
It sounds like you're kind of using it as a sort of to get over the blank page syndrome.
Yes.
It gives you a head start, and
yeah,
I've heard lots of people describe it as like having infinite interns. Like, they're not very smart interns, but like looking at 50,000 ideas or 5,000 ideas, like you'll be able to spot the good from bad. And as you said, even if it's not actually there, you maybe it takes you down a direction that
it can give you like a little gold nugget of something that can become great.
Right,
for sure.
I agree. I think we've had much the same experience. We try and use it with the stuff with the learning that we're doing a lot, and we've built some tests to try and see whether it could create content based on a whole load of trained data, and it's good, but it produces too many false positives. So I don't think you could. I know that there are e-learning companies that use it now. Like, you can say, like, create a course on X, Y, and Z, and obviously it'll do it, but it's going to be riddled with errors and not factually correct. So we haven't used it yet. But what we're experimenting with for us, I hope when you next take a course, you'll get to try this out. But we found that, much like you were saying, if you give it lots of context, it can come up with quite interesting results. So what we've done is sort of created a template for you to type in your own prompts. It's like, "Hi, I'm in Brazil, I'm a copywriter, I'm working on Coke," whatever it is. Like, you give it as much information as you can. We prompt you to say what to say or say what to write. And then when you're taking a lesson, say if you were learning about System 1 and System 2 thinking on behavioral science, it would give you a summary at the end of like a few bullet points of how you could use System 1 and System 2 thinking in your day-to-day job based on the client that you're working with, the job that you're doing.
Right.
And we found good results from that. But it does seem to be critical to put in the right context up front.
You're going to have to guide it, give it a nudge.
Yes.
The direction you want, obviously.
Totally. And then the final thing I know we wanted to talk about was the future of ideas, a very chilled out topic. I mean, It's
Right.
it's quite a big thing, but yeah, please do go ahead and explain what you were meaning by that.
Should I take this one, Pedro, first?
Yeah, you should take it, man. Go ahead. Oh, you
insist. Well, let's see. I think obviously AI is one of the topics of the future of ideas, and I think Pedro and I have talked kind of in general about that just now. I've always been a very positive person, optimistic, and I think I'll always be that kind of guy who always sees the good in things. So I do think that, especially after seeing Cannes this year and seeing the lovely work from British Airways and Recycle Me, and Burger King always does excellently at the awards. Advertising is definitely not dead. They always said, like, when the TV came along, that radio would die. Radio has never died. Radio has like evolved into something that's awesome, like Sirius XM, Spotify, Deezer. So I think people have to be very careful when they say, "Oh, this will die," or "This is over," or just take a look at history, and it's not even that far away from us. Like not that long ago, that things just adapt, And so I think basically for the future of ideas, we have a tremendous responsibility to, like I said, care about the work. As long as we care and we're the stewards of this work, I think everything will be fine. There will obviously be bumps and roads, bumps and, bumps along the road. But, which is natural, it happens all the time. But I'm very optimistic. I think even more awesome ideas are going to come from the clients I mentioned. And yeah, I'm just excited to be in this industry right now, to be alive in this point in time. Let's see. I think in terms of like creative talent, which links into the future of ideas, like I just mentioned, we have to have people who care about the work a lot. And I think it's working out fine. Like there are tons of ad schools, like Miami Ad School is an example. And I've been to it physically in Rio de Janeiro. The students there are very passionate too. They always have like their hands up for proactive ideas. And it's crazy the amount of talent that's coming out. And yeah, in summary, I'm just very optimistic. I think it's such a wonderful time to work in this career. And if anyone has like any doubts, just look at Cannes this year, and I think it's a good north to take. Yeah,
100%, Johnny. Agree with everything he said. And I think it's a great time to be having ideas, and I think simplicity's back, fun is back. Craft is definitely back too, like crafty ideas that, good ways to show aesthetics, good writing. And honestly, I think that it's very exciting. There's a lot of cool work still to be done. And I'd say the future is definitely the simplicity, though, to me is what I'm noticing is I feel like, bold and simple. I mean, it's pretty much always been the thing, but I think now it's more than ever the thing. So, that's totally what I think where it's gonna go.
So I can just say one more thing.
Yeah.
Because Pedro just said bold and simple. And I was remembering, I don't know why, but I remember David Ogilvy's older work. Like was it the Bentley car that he did the famous headlines? Yeah, so. Yeah.
Rolls Royce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the electric clock, that's the sound you can hear in the car.
Yeah, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, you can hear
the thing you'll hear in the cars.
It's so good. We live in different times. Like this was decades ago, and simplicity and minimalism was present at the time, but I think it's even more necessary right now for many reasons. The main reason is people's attention spans. They say that we have the attention span of a goldfish nowadays, which is 5 or 6 seconds. And this is like a fact. This isn't even like made up. This is true. They've done studies on this. And so to break that attention barrier, you need simplicity. You need ideas that are digestible, easy to understand at a glance. You can't even take 10 seconds. It has to be like 1 second, maybe even less than 1 second. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that nowadays it's never been more important. We always say it's never been more important, but this is like this is for real this time. Like, we truly need minimalist crafts, beautiful ideas, easy ideas, hacking ideas, which are in vogue and very welcome in my view. Yeah, that was just the side note I wanted to add.
Right, they're all handy and helpful things and well observed. If you had to give people listening to this podcast like one kind of piece of advice, just if they wanted to get better at their creative work, like what would it be for each of you?
I think for me, definitely try to put your idea into a sentence. I think that if you can, in one sentence, tell your idea to someone, I think you're starting to get to something very interesting. So I'd say do the one sentence exercise. It's definitely going to help.
Perfect. So Johnny?
I don't know, man. I mean, there's so many things that a person can do, but if I had to choose one thing, like one main thing to start, I think I would like advise them to, it's like the pre-step I mentioned about Muhammad Ali, right? Do the training, like do a lot of training. If you can absorb content, a lot of content, especially in your younger days, and if you love that content naturally, that's going to be like 60%, maybe 70%, I think, of the work. Because when you're creating ideas, when you're sitting down to brainstorm with your partner, with your art director, or your designer, those ideas from your childhood, and they're all going to be stored in your unconscious. And so they're going to just come up like a flood in your brain. And like we said, with magic audios and safe flags, they came naturally from like a informal discussion between creatives. But they came naturally because we did the work before. Like, we watch Netflix, we watch movies, we listen to podcasts, we're curious, we're interested. So that would be my main advice for anyone trying to come into this field, is just to be constantly learning and go be like the extra mile. If you think you're like comfortable, just go a little further, you know? Maybe like one thing I do when I watch movies, I watch the entire movie, even the credits, because I think there's crafts to the credits. Like the end credits have their own typography. There's even a soundtrack at the end that's part of the movie. Like, someone thought of that soundtrack for the end credits, you know? So yeah, just go the extra mile, and like, don't give up, you know? I don't know. I'm just saying like generic stuff. This is all, it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. It works. Trust me.
Sounds like obsessive,
compulsive
curiosity, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean,
I love it.
It works.
Yeah. No, like, fantastic advice, and I really, really appreciate both of you taking out your time to be so generous with everything you've shared today, and I really can't wait to hopefully meet you in person someday soon. Preferably when you're on stage picking up a Grand Prix or something at Lions. That'd be nice.
Hope so, Chris. Who knows, man? Would love to.
Out there, so.
Maybe next year, man.
Yeah, you gotta do some remote working together. Maybe pitch some more ideas to Coca-Cola, and hopefully see you there. Be
Look,
lovely.
I wanna say thank you first of all, and Pedro's obviously gonna speak a little bit soon, but again, for the viewers and listeners, I've been following 42 courses since 2019. I've done maybe 20 of their courses, and I'm not trying to plug 42 courses. Like, I'm just saying that I genuinely like the content, and this podcast was an idea that Pedro and I had. What if we participated with Chris? And so another piece of advice I would give to people in this field is just don't be afraid to like reach out to people that you think are impossible to reach out to. And Chris is obviously an awesome dude, as you can see and hear.
Thank you.
some people are going to be a little more closed off, but even them, I think you should go to, and you're going to find that they're just natural. They're just simple humans. They're normal people. So don't be afraid to put your foot out there and make contact with them.
100% agree. Never be scared to do those things. I think people are generally nice and willing to help if you
they want to
ask nicely.
For sure.
No, great advice.
Pedro, do you want to?
Awesome. No, just thank you so much, Chris. Again, really, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us. Thanks for setting this time aside. I know it's super late over there in London, man, in the UK. So honestly, just really appreciate it. And honestly, it was a great talk, great chatting. So thank you so much.
I learned a lot. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it again. And look forward to chatting soon.
Yeah, we love it.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this 42 Courses podcast. If you did, please like and share. Any comments are also very, very welcome. And of course, if you want to learn more about us, visit our website at 42courses.com. Thanks again.